Another former Lion, now Patriot, Kyle Van Noy.
Yeah.
It was, in retrospect, I was saying it all of last year, I thought that was one of the worst trades in recent NFL history, not because it was some blockbuster deal, but the Lions literally gave this player away who was starting for them. He wasn't even, sometimes you'll see guys, if they start to be healthy scratches, and you can see them falling out. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was starting.
Yeah, he was.
And they traded him to New England with a 7th-round pick for a 6th-round pick. So they basically moved up like 15 spots at the very end of the draft and just gave away a starting player who had 2 more years on his rookie deal. Right. Van Noy goes on to be a pretty impactful player for New England, and I was looking at that thing thinking, what is, does Bob Quinn owe Belichick a favor?
That was what we said in Detroit. Like, did he like lose a bet or something? Yeah. Because Van Noy wasn't working out in Detroit, but he also gave him away for nothing. And you saw how quickly he was, a good role player in New England, and then eventually over time, obviously, became a really important player, particularly after the Hightower injury this past year. I'm telling you, just from seeing Van Noy in his couple of seasons in Detroit, he was awful. I mean, he was lost. Yeah. The problem was that he played in the box. He played down with his hand in the dirt at BYU. He comes to Detroit. He really struggled with the move from playing in the dirt to playing upright at linebacker. And part of the problem was that he had an injury, a sports hernia, so he missed the first 8 games of his rookie year. And he just never recovered. He struggled to make that transition, which in Detroit you kind of put that on Van Noy. But then when he goes to New England and all of a sudden he starts playing really well and carves out a role for himself in a really good defense, I almost now put it more on the coaches than I do Van Noy, because clearly he had the ability. They just didn't know how to use him. They didn't know how to develop him. And talking to Van Noy at length at the Super Bowl, I mean, I thought he was going to shed a tear talking about Matt Patricia and the job that staff did, just teaching him the defense, teaching him how to play football, staying at the facilities at 10 o'clock at night, teaching him the finer points of the game, which obviously wasn't happening in Detroit. I think that really illustrates the level of coaching in New England versus Detroit.
Yeah, that's probably part of it, and also might just be a time thing. I mean, he's in his 4th year now in the NFL, so he just might have better acclimated himself regardless.
It's possible, but he wasn't developing in Detroit either. I mean, he was flatlined. I mean, he was starting because he was the best body at that strong side linebacker spot, and that spot barely. I mean, he was playing 20% of the snaps anyway, even as a starter. And obviously, just a huge uptick when he went to New England. He was a very good player.